My name is Jerry Herships, and we are in Highlands Ranch, Colorado, and I'm talking to you about After Hours, which is a church thing that we sort of created. Actually, we just celebrated 1 year. I was a bartender in a former life and an entertainer, and all the time people would say they wanted to go to church, but they always kind of felt like, well, I'm just really tired and it's hard to go to church, and most people don't know what it's like to work till 2 or 3 in the morning and then burn their ice and cash their drawer and then go to bed at 4 and then have to get up for church the next day. So we thought, well, why don't we do church later in the day and make it a little bit more relaxed? And so we're in a strip mall now, and we sit at round tables, and we a very short sermon, because we realize that everybody's got a voice rather than just preacher guy. And so I talk for about 10 minutes, and then we kind of throw it to the congregation, the audience, and they sit and have conversations at their table for about 15 minutes, and then we come back together and sort of do a dialogue. And we have stations where people can, they're called prayer stations, but really we give them 10 minutes to just be quiet, because these days it's pretty rare to have that kind of quiet time. So we have 2 minutes of complete silence, just nothing. And it's probably the only 2 minutes of complete silence I get all week, and I'm pretty sure that's the case with most people there. We make sandwiches for the homeless. Those are one of the prayer stations that we do. And so we've been making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for an organization called Centro, which is downtown. And they're an organization that help day laborers find work. So a lot of times that PB&J sack lunch is it for them. So we've been doing that since January. We just make 50 a week and take them down there on Monday. But we've done 2,600 lunches down there for those guys. And about halfway through the year, actually it was closer to fall, we were like, you know, we should start earlier. And then if anybody wants to make sandwiches, we'll take them down to the park and feed the homeless and see if they'd, you know, if that would be worthwhile. And so people started showing up. We started making lunch. So now we're making 100 lunches a week. We started going down to the park. And so we just go down there and we give them a sack lunch, socks, water, and communion. And we really didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't even know about the socks technically until we realized that that's like gold. You know, we don't think much about changing our socks, but when you're wearing the same pair for a week, there's something about this that people can come to church, they can make a sandwich tonight and know they're feeding somebody tomorrow, and it's just a very short line. It's very clean. It's not a lot of bureaucracy. There's not a lot of committee meetings deciding it. We load them in a truck, we take them down, people are fed. We had a friend of ours come down and take photos, and I was talking to one of the guys and said, do you mind if we do this? And he says, I don't mind. He goes, why are you doing it? And I said, you know, so that people have a face to give to. It makes a huge difference when you're just giving to a cause and writing a check, and when you actually see the people and talk to the people. It's not that different than what you're doing right now. It's you put a face on a thing that says this is humanity. We go down on Tuesdays and Fridays. We got involved with the Wesley Foundation, which is part of the United Methodist Church, and they're on DU's campus. And they go down on Friday. And then another church in Arvada, right outside of Denver, so we want to do this. So they started coming down on Mondays, and they're doing it. I got an email today from another church in inner city Denver that says we want to pick up Wednesdays. So ideally, we're going to be doing this thing called The Table down in the park, where we'll be feeding people now, ideally 7 days a week is what we'd love to do. We have no illusions that we're going to solve the problem, but for 2 hours a week, these guys can like talk to you, and they're like, hey, and you talk to them. You don't like cover your eyes, you don't walk on their side of the street, you look forward to seeing them. And just to not be invisible for an hour, to be somewhere where people are coming to see you rather than avoid seeing you, you know, maybe that's the miracle. You know, maybe that's the big piece. You know, if we could keep doing that, and who knows, like I said, with Facebook and all this stuff, I would love to know that they're making sandwiches in Cleveland. And I would love to know that they're doing this in Miami and Orlando and in Texas and down in Skid Row in LA. we could do worse than feeding people that are hungry. It's funny, we started as a worship service that had sort of an outreach component, and I'm almost wondering if it's an outreach that has a worship component to it. We get probably 60 or 70 people a week that show up. I think there's people that genuinely want to connect to God, but they struggle with dogma, they struggle with organized religion, they struggle with alternative agendas, and so they want something that people have just said, boy, it's not really a normal church thing you're doing. And that's great, because the people that come are people that haven't come to church for 10 years. They haven't been in 20 years. Some of them have never been. And there's, one of the guys just said, he goes, Jerry, there's just no BS. He says, people smell that now. 5 years ago, I was sitting in the pews. I know what it means to be asked for money. I know what it means to sit through boring sermons. I know what it means to sing songs that I don't know, that I'm trying to find the hymnal, and then I find I'm looking in the wrong book, and then by the time I find it, the song's over, and I just feel like an idiot. And I'm like, that can't be right. So right from the beginning, I grew up Catholic. We were talking about being mutts earlier. I mean, I've got a very diverse background, and so I grew up altar boy, did that whole 9 yards, and then I don't think I set foot in a church in my 20s. I just had no interest. I wasn't mad at the church, it just didn't seem relevant to me. And I kind of thought you had to do God a certain way. This is the way you do God. And if you don't do God that way, blessings to you, but there's a door. And so I just kind of went, okay, and I walked through the door. And then when people said, that's not exactly the only way, I was almost angry. I was like, does anybody else know that? When you cut through all the stuff that is and can be dogma and religion and you just cut to the chase of it, it's like, you know what, it is the right thing to do. Somebody is in need. You help them. It's not rocket science. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be able to quote the Torah or the New Testament or the Quran or whatever your book, you have to go out and do. And that idea of helping somebody, no religion's got a lock on that. None of them do. I think sometimes we almost get petrified of starting anything. We get paralyzed, and we get to this place where I can't imagine how much work that's going to take. And I sit there and think, it's easy to do that in our society. It's easy to think, what do I have? And I thought, the first day we just got sandwiches and lunches and walked down to the park and set up a table, card table, and start handing them out. And it was that easy. It was freakishly easy, to the point where people were like, so tell me again how you do it. And you're like, you make the sandwich, you put it in your car, take it down, you hand it to someone, tell them have a good day. You with me so far? I mean, it's almost stunning that there was nobody else in the park, because I'm like, how many churches, how many synagogues, how many mosques, how many non-religious, how many organizations could be down there? And the there can be anywhere. It doesn't have to be Civic Center Park. It can be 32nd and Federal. It can be 5 Points. It can be, pick your spot. There's plenty of places. And it's like, if I had a message, it would be just try it. Just give it a shot and see how far you can go before you get stopped. Because I'm preaching to the choir with you here. You might be amazed at how far you get. We're stunned. We just keep waiting for somebody to pat us on the shoulder and go, that was cute, now move along. You're done. Thank you for playing, but you're like, and it hasn't happened yet. So just go do it. We just go do it. Do something.